Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to a Based LDS video, and I thought we would just go over the comments for this week. We've got some musical accompaniment. My daughter's downstairs practicing her piano, and although it is volume adjustable, she refuses to do so, and my wife is on her side. So, this has been a weird week. I've been extremely busy. And the last video I put out earlier today, I had so much in mind. Did not come out the way I wanted it to, but I'm gonna let it stand because I don't know. Something will come up. I'll get more creative and inspired again. But I do want to say this. Thank you all for watching. I do appreciate you guys' participation in this. I appreciate your comments. I wish I'd get more. Yes, so there's so much that's happened this week. And, anyway, so let's get into our comments, shall we? And I had one comment on the video I made for the young man who had been suspended and eventually arrested for opposing the use of biological males to use the female bathrooms at his high school in Canada. And this is one of those that boggles my mind. I don't know how society is letting this happen. I don't know why. I don't know why the feelings of women, biological females, are not taken into more consideration because they are not comfortable with this at any age. There are a few, it's a minority, who say to let it go, but then when it happens to them, they tend to backtrack. So Kim says that this young man is standing on a firm foundation. Admire his strength in the truth and pray for him. And good, we should pray for him. We should pray for everyone who is standing up to the woke mob. Absolutely have to stand up for the people facing the woke mob. Let's see. Then my video on the church and the SEC fining them for $5 million. All smoke, no fire. And this has been around. And it's kind of funny. Slow Bro. How you doing, Slow Bro? I miss you at church. I wish you luck at where you're at now. Slow Bro says $5 million is a lot of tithing. And this isn't coming from tithing. This is coming from the investment funds that the church is holding. You can say tithing bought these properties, but tithing goes to maintain the church's property system right now. And when we come out with surplus, we need to do our best to multiply it. That's what the scriptures tell us to do. That's what we're asked to do in our private lives. Kay responded, it isn't coming from tithing funds. And then Ace replied to Kay, duped. That's what the church wants you to believe. And the thing is, for me, I can separate tithing from return on investment. I really can. I can separate tithing from return on investment. These are funds held in store for the rainy day. These are funds held in store for building of Zion when Christ comes back. It's not going to be freebie. It's not all sunshine and rainbows when Christ comes back. Everything will continue to operate, but the Christ will be here reigning. We're going to have to pay for things. We're going to have to accelerate the building of Zion. Blossom to Kmart also says, lol. Also, apparently not a lot of people agree with K. Sorry about that, K. I'm with you there, sir. And then Shane, Ensign Peak did nothing illegal. Your assessment is exactly correct. LLCs or shell companies are formed to protect other assets. Every dime was reported. Troy seems like a nice guy, but he doesn't talk about anything we don't already know. He's trying to make some money, and I get that. So, yeah, Shane, I'm with you. Ensign Peak did nothing wrong. Look, they bring in legal advisors because there's so many ways to do things. And there is, you want to call it creative bookkeeping? Okay, call it creative bookkeeping. But there was nothing illegal. It was a misfiling of forms. Everything was reported. The church paid the taxes. Everything was paid for. They just didn't like how we filed it. And fine, I get that. There's going to be a process. There's going to be a procedure. But let me say this. That tax code that everyone's so worried about, the book, the tax code, that's all for the rich people. The only thing that applies to me and you, like the 99%, not the 1%, not the big businesses, not even the small mom and pops, because they have to mind their P's and Q's on their taxes. Like the just average Joe out there, 2 or 3 pages. And I'm making this number up, but not much in that tax code applies to us. That's why we get the 99 easy forms, right? Here's how much I made. Here's how much I owed. By the way, here's my deductibles. By the way, here's my charitables. Here's my child support. Here's my housing. But basically, our forms are A to Z, and we're filling it out easy. That book, that giant tax code book, whatever you want to say, it's all built to provide loopholes and cut-arounds for the top. And that's everybody who's in business. That's everybody who's a charitable organization. Thoughtful Faith had a good segment on, and maybe this is something I'll get into more, but Thoughtful Faith had a good segment, and they played a video from the Mormon Land podcast. What was the guy's name? Michael Quinn, I think. He was excommunicated a number of years ago, so he's not a fan of the church, but he wrote a book on the financial structure of the church, and even this guy, excommunicated, critic of the church, he's like, church does nothing wrong in their finances. Now, he said all this before the SEC scandal broke. This is an old thing, but this is him talking to the Salt Lake Tribune's podcast, Mormon Land, saying the church is on the up and up. They're not squandering funds. The funds are going towards the building of the church, of the kingdom. They point out, if you think about the amount of tithing paid and the number of people, the church is not ripping us off. These billions upon billions, it's not a ripoff. It's not a Ponzi scheme. Even this guy says they're responsible with their money. It's rainy day funds. It's savings. And that we're not being gouged. And I'll say it again. For those people that say, well, if the church has $100 billion in total assets, not just the 32 billion taxable or whatever it was, but if it's 100 billion in total assets, everything all together, the maintenance of those to continue building, and quite frankly, the church is subsidizing the development of the kingdom in less developed areas. Okay, so we can't say that the people are being tied down under grievous financial burdens. We're just not. We're not. It's just, that's a ridiculous statement. And I just, I'm sorry. I'm going to disagree. And I do, Slow Bro, I know you. I'll see you. I'll text you again tonight. You let me know why I'm wrong. But It's not the tithing. This money's going to come out of the return on investment. That's it. Simple as. Catherine, in response to this, also says, this is a test. Watch out. The Book of Mormon is still true regardless of what the corporate church does. This might fuel some anti-fire. And it will. And it has. Nemo and Mormon stories and... Oh, what do they call themselves now? What's Zelf on the shelf? The dumb blonde and her beta boyfriend. Yeah, no, they're out with this. Freaking Exmo Lex is out with this. They're all out with this. And the corporate church, it's a legal entity. They're advised to do things. The church says, here's what we'd like to do. The lawyers take that, look at the tax code, and go, okay, here's what we think will work. The church says, all right, let's do this. Let's do this. And then, quite frankly, you go on faith that it's good advice. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Let's see. Susan says, I did see this. I heard the Tears, the podcast on their View Mormon Stories, but had faith, Quick Media, Greg, would soon back up the wheat story. We must always trust that God's ways against the world. And see, that's just the point. Like, it was so easy just to go with 2 Utah newspapers and look at the Trib versus Deseret News. The Trib's like, church is hiding. Deseret News is, yeah, okay, we made a mistake and the SEC hit us. And the SEC says it. Since 2019, we've been just fine. But they went through, they checked everything, crossed T's, dot I's, and the SEC says, okay, you were bad boys from 97 to 2019. $5 million for 22 years of misfiling. Yeah, $5 million's a lot to me and you. But $5 million in the business world, it's not a lot. It's not a big thing. It really is not. And when you hear fraud from Nemo, he's lying. When you hear fraud from Mormon Stories, and when you hear that they're breaking the backs of the poor to enrich themselves, I want to know how they're enriching themselves. I do. And maybe this is something we'll need to get into. Maybe we need to do a little bit more on the finances of the church. Yes, the brethren do draw a stipend. And I think it's like $120,000 a year. Yes, that's a lot of money. But let me ask you. President Nelson, what do you think he was making as a heart surgeon? I guarantee it was more than $120,000. What do you think Elder Oaks was doing? More than $120,000. The guys running the schools, President Eyring, President Holland, President Eyring, Elder Holland, Elder Bednar, back when they were managing BYU Idaho. That pays a lot of money, a lot more than $120,000. I don't know what the other. I used to know what the other apostles did. I think what Elder Ballard was into car dealerships and big business like that. I think he probably made more than $120,000. They gave up all those business interests to serve. It's a lifetime calling. And when you look, if they are running a $100 billion organization like the church, what is it? The medical stuff. Red Cross. I keep wanting to see Relief Society. Red Cross. They're paying $1 million to their heads. Those guys are making $1 million. I mean, come on. We can't complain. We should not complain. We should be a little more understanding. We should be a little bit charitable. And for those people, Ace and Blossom, and to a degree, I think you, Slowbro, you may want to think this comes from tithing. You may want to think this comes from the broken backs of believers. But the Lord requires sacrifice. This is our sacrifice, to a point. This is the beginning of it. Because then, once you go through the temple, there's consecration, right? Which is more than 10%. It's 10% and then some. And I don't think anyone who pays an honest tithe and anyone who actively tries to live up to the law of consecration, none of those people have any complaint. And there are plenty of people out there that are poor, that are those poor you think you're sticking up for, that tell you to step off, that what they're doing is for God and for God's kingdom. And they understand that even if they're not blessed in this life with great riches, they're blessed in the life to come, because it's an example of faith, like the widow's mite. All right, that's it. That's where I'm going to leave that one. But, it's funny when it comes to money. It is really funny when it comes to money. Let's see. So then on my video from Elder Oaks clarifying the church's comments on the Respect for Marriage Act, Green Tree says, unfortunately, the church has to respect the law of the land. It's in the Articles of Faith. It's like Alma and Amulek right now, letting the wicked perform the measure of their wickedness so that the judgments that befall them will be just. Can't wait for the second coming to burn all iniquity already. And we're supposed to pray for and work for the second coming, right? The support for this act was, and then in reply to Green Tree, Roland says, the support for this act was gratuitous. They didn't have to say a thing. They injected themselves. It backfired, and Oaks is just trying to put out the dumpster fire smoldering in the church office building. I kind of have to agree with Roland here. They didn't need to say anything. If they would not have said anything, no one would care. This would have passed, and we would have looked at each other in Relief Society and priesthood and sacrament. We would have said, man, the world is sliding. But I listened to their comments. And I don't think I agree. The doctrine will not be changing. That is absolutely clear. But I done think they done messed up when they referred to marriage as a right. It's not a right. It's a right the same way that abortion was a made-up right, according to Roe v. Wade. It's not a right. There's nothing in nature that guarantees marriage, that guarantees abortion, or any of these things. It's a made-up right. Marriage is a privilege. It is. Now, it's a privilege we're commanded to participate in, but there will be measures given for those people that can't get married, right? That aren't able to enter into ceilings and go to the temples to be married. Because not everyone's going to be able to get there. There's too many heartbroken sisters waiting for good men. Problem is, there's few good men. There are more worthwhile sisters than there are good men. That's my opinion. I don't have statistics. But it's the eye test. It's the eye test. So then Green Tea responds to Roland. At Roland, this forced attempt to be too nice is everywhere. I don't like it. It sounds insincere. You don't have to give a compliment, especially if it's something you don't approve of deep down. Sometimes saying nothing is better. And then Roland says, exactly. They should have just let the thing play out politically. Mike Lee was doing all the heavy lifting for the church anyway. Instead, they chose to put a knife in his back. And they did. They did. I still, see, that's my thing. I agree with Mike Lee. I don't think there's anywhere in this law that actually protects religious exemption, religious freedom, right of conscience. I don't see it in the law. I see it as an affirmation so that the Supreme Court can't go through and overturn it. See, and that's the problem. They never got this affirmation done in Congress for Roe v. Wade. So when they overturned Roe v. Wade and gave the power back to the states, and Clarence Thomas said, well, we need to look at, the left panicked. And they said, uh-oh. The ists and phobes are coming for the gays and the people of color through marriage. And this act was political nonsense. It absolutely was. And Mike Lee, I think he saw it. I think he saw it, and I think he's correct. There is no guaranteed provision for religious freedom or right of conscience in this law. There is nothing like that. So, another separate comment, separate from the original. Kmart again says, Elder Oak's comments honestly made perfect sense to me. I appreciate your channel. Kay, I appreciate you. Thank you. No, Elder Oak's comments made perfect sense to me. They did. They made perfect sense to me. The problem is, I don't agree with his assessment. He was not unclear. He said it. He said the church's doctrine is not going to change. And they said that in their original statement. That was line 1. Marriage is between man and a woman. That was in the original church statement. But then the second paragraph was the marital rights of our LGBTQ brothers and sisters. It's not a right. And nobody's concerned about, I don't think anyway, I might be wrong, I don't think any honest member, any honest critic of the church thinks that the church is going to change their doctrine on marriage. But they are worried when the church says, we respect the rights of our LGBTQ sisters to be married, brothers and sisters. It's not a right. I don't like them referring to this a right. This is giving an inch and the left will take the mile. And they'll cudgel us with this thing. And to K. Martin, Roland replies, all is well in Zion. And that's kind of an Isaiah boom mic drop. Because, yeah, K. Martin, I do agree. His comments made sense. They absolutely did. I just don't think this did anything to further the position of the church. I would have preferred that they said absolutely nothing. I would have. But the PR department, right? It's all PR. So, but yeah, that got some... This is just interesting. Some of these things going on now. Let's see. And then the last video about Puffin Books and changes to the Roald Dahl books. Green Tree. You're popular this week, thank you. People are already teaching that the Nephites weren't white and the Lamanites weren't dark, and that Mary wasn't fair and white, and that the mark of Cain wasn't blackness. Too many truth bombs there, sir. Too many truth bombs. Yeah, no, they are. Well, the Nephites weren't white, and the Lamanites, well, they weren't actually dark. And Mary can't be fair and white. She's Middle Eastern, after all, so she's got to be... I'm not going to get into that. In Cain blackness, I see the problem is the Cain blackness thing has become a racial issue. And everybody's so sensitive now, and I hate it. I hate the sensitivity. I hate the victim seeking. I remember when we used to be strong. I do. I remember when we used to stand strong and stand up, and it was clear what we thought and what we believed. And now the woke scolds won't have us teaching things from the scriptures. I might have to try and find it. I don't know, it's kind of old. But there was a push made to have certain biblical references made illegal to be preached out loud in Great Britain, England. I'm like, come on. This is what happens when there's no guarantee of freedom. That's the beauty of our Constitution, as long as we vote to keep it. And then Catherine also replied, parents are beginning to push back against woke corruption in schools. I pray the movement takes hold and we stop this mess across the U.S. And that's absolutely true. Parents are beginning to push back against this woke nonsense. And it's funny, because it's a pushback across the board. This isn't just a conservative thing. The progressives don't like it. Do not get me wrong. The progressives do not like it. But your good, formerly commonsensical liberals are coming out and going, well, okay, this is too far. It's too much. But I do worry about them whitewashing scripture and history. it's really interesting what's going on now, the kind of times we're living in, and the kind of world we're leaving our youth. I never thought I'd see a day like this. I had no confusion. I had no idea what the word confusion meant until 2015. And the world just lost its mind overnight. What happened? It boggles my mind. And I honestly, when I think it can't go any further, I watch something or I hear something and I'm like, I'm wrong. Take it back. Yeah. It's insane. It is absolutely insane. Anyway, brothers and sisters, that's all for this video. Look, if you have suggestions for things you'd like me to talk about, leave a comment on some of the videos like, hey, this is a good video, you moron, you said this wrong. Leave a message on something you'd like to hear, or email me, basedlds@gmail.com. If you've heard about something and you want it talked about, if you'd seen something, some video from somebody and you want it covered or talked about, email me. I will reply and try and get to it. I'm looking for stuff to talk about. In fact, I am so bored and so depressed, I'm going to swim through the sewage that is Vice videos. They're debates. Because I want you to see, in a funny way, what the ideology of the devil, what the gospel according to the devil sounds like as they debate just conservative versus progressive on the role of males and toxic masculinity, on feminism, on the funniest one is Asian. What's the term? But it has to do with the Asian community and the gun rights community. And the one I watched today that I thought was the most interesting, that was quite telling, was on education, actually. And people across the board were quite united if they had children. But the ones with no children, their ideologies trumped all. And that's telling. They don't have children, so they want to conform your children to their way of thinking and acting. That is frightening. So, anyway, I'm going to start those videos tomorrow, as well as some other religion and current events videos. But brothers and sisters, I love you. I thank you for listening. I hope you will like and share these videos. I hope you'll talk. Give us stuff to talk about. Give us something to communicate about. You guys, there are some really good back and forth in these, in a couple of these discussions, right? Where we're replying to each other. About the tithing more specifically and the Respect for Marriage Act. I have a feeling we haven't seen the last of these two, and that breaks my heart. I'd rather talk about more positive, uplifting things. But, hey, my biggest video yet is the Rainbow Fest at DC Temple. But, anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Peace out.